Dragonforce with Reaching into Infinity. Now before we get started, I want to do something. I want to take a little bit of an informal poll. If you were somebody who's watching this video that got into this band because of Through the Fire and Flames, you know, the Guitar Hero song, the blah 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 blah, blah song that everybody considered to be so uber-elite, and it was pretty challenging, and you're still listening to the band today, post right now in the comments below as part of your comment, I'm still listening to Dragonforce after Through the Fire and Flames. I just want to see just how big of an impact that this song has had on the band's career, or if it was simply something that everybody went gaga over because it was on a video game. So let's talk about Reaching into Infinity. What's interesting is that ever since the hype of the oversaturation of Through the Fire and Flames have died down, once again, Dragonforce has been exposed to what they've really kind of been throughout their entire career, and that's competent songwriters. But this is something that, via the theory of evolution, has become even more exposed over their last couple of outings, and it's been principally because they've taken their pre-established positions on power and progressive and speed metal and have added little things along the way in order to give it a little bit more palpability, to give it a little bit more variety. And as a result, the albums have become even more enjoyable as time has progressed. And it's time for us to see if Reaching into Infinity follows the same metal. And really, whenever you scope out this title track going into Ashes of the Dawn, which Reaching into Infinity was more so just an idea to get this album going. But Ashes of the Dawn immediately thrusts you right into the speed metal, the speed that gives Dragonforce really its nomenclature, what everybody knows them as. Really, Dragonforce is a group that can take just about any song or any idea and provide this level of aggression and intensity, these soaring vocals that are able to sort of hopscotch their way from one corner of the spectrum to the other, and it's what gives them sort of their unique taste. Yes, there are other power metal bands and prog metal bands, or bands in general on the market that can do some of these very same theatrics, some of these very same up and downs, but it seems like Dragonforce has notched a cornerstone all their own that makes their sound feel at least a little bit more signature than perhaps some of the other bands that also propose the same musical idea. Judgment Day into Astral Empire follow this along, only going a little bit longer with the Judgment Day song, the Judgment Day track 3, which offers us a little bit more in that songwriting spectrum, showing how the band has been able to really take all of this intensity and really go wild with it and go crazy with it. Think about a track from a band such as Blind Guardian. Now put it on speed metal steroids, and you get a great example as to what you get from a track such as Judgment Day. And I'm especially looking at some of the tracks that you got from BG off of their last album. And that sort of is where we're at whenever it comes to a track such as Judgment Day with Astral Empire, really just re-employing some of those concepts that we previously discussed on Ashes of the Dawn. Whenever you get down to Curse of Darkness and Silence, though, you start to see that the band is able to slow things down a little bit, especially on a track such as Silence, which is a 4-minute and 50-second long break song is what I really call this. This is kind of like the breathing point after the first 5 songs hit you with almost non-stop aggression. And the thing of it is that that's all that it really is that it's just this sort of sigh. It gives you that opportunity to really breathe a little bit, because Midnight Madness really starts right back up whenever it comes to the speed. But a track such as War really takes the intensity to a brand new level. The thrashy riffs that you get with this, as well as those soaring vocals that are able to just sort of swirl around the composition as opposed to directly following it, give this track really the 100% a good reason for having that explanation point at the end of it, and the word itself being capitalized. War definitely is able to fury with the same roar that the title itself truly suggests. Going into Land of Shattered Dreams and the Edge of the World. Now, we're going to talk about Land of Shattered Dreams just very briefly, because this is a 5-minute track that feels a little bit atypical. At this point in time, you're starting to really understand a madness that is beyond what Dragonforce is all about. So some of these tracks, and this is where this becomes a bit disadvantageous to the band, is that some of these songs, since you are very aware as to what Dragonforce is all about, that the speed and the obvious virtuosic nature of the guitar work is one of the cornerstones of the band, it can make this at times a little bit of an exercise in order to get through if you are not already prepared to do so, or if you don't have a little bit of more give to your attention span. Things can start to run together a little bit unless you feel like you have been blindly impressed by everything that they have presented. But at this point in time, Dragonforce's sound is also no secret, based off of the fact that we've had a number of albums by this band already, and that's where sort of the growing points really needed to happen, and it did with the tracks such as The Edge of the World. This is an 11-minute and 2-second long track, and this resembles that old idea of the power metal epic, and it does so, and really commits to it as well, and you can tell just by the introduction. You go more than 2 minutes, actually go even further than that, deeper into the song, without that speed and aggression coming into play. In fact, it's not even until the halfway point or even slightly beyond where we start to get any of that super hyper aggressiveness that Dragonforce has painted within their sound over the course of the past decade and a half. And that's a really refreshing change. You see an 11-minute long track from Dragonforce and you feel almost instantly that you're going to be completely overwhelmed. But instead they pen, as I stated, what would be very much like a power metal epic track, and it works very well. It works actually in their favor. We finalized this album with Our Final Stand, and this is a 5-minute finale that really just does not feel like it lives up to exactly the majesty and the grandeur that you got from The Edge of the World. You almost wish that that was the last thing that you heard from this band whenever it comes to this album. And of course, there are deluxe materials as well. Gloria was a fairly decent cover, but we need to talk about what I'm sure all of you are here for, and that's the death cover, Evil Dead. Now, the original version of this song really takes a really interesting take on death metal, and this is whenever it's in its infancy. The riff that starts this off sounds like it's almost a really fuzzed out and really just shredded Iron Maiden riff, which is ironic considering Iron Maiden and Death are currently going toe-to-toe in Music Madness. We're about to figure out who won that matchup, but whenever you hear the overall sort of raw nature of the original, you really appreciate it for what it's worth. That sort of dirty grandeur to it, that veneer that it has, is what makes this feel like such a classic and important track to the death metal genre. And I'm not saying that Dragonforce did this song a disservice, because quite frankly, they were able to really up the ante with the clean production to just how much of an Iron Maiden riff this feels like at the onset of the song. But they made it sound like it was sort of like Judas Priest and Metallica on crack, whereas Death sounds like they were just trailblazing and pioneering something that was all the more sinister. And sort of the way that sort of goes head-to-head with one another is going to be problematic to some folks. They're going to feel that sort of shortchanges the song a little bit, but in reality it just applies it to Dragonforce's flavor and showcases that within their sound, especially their guitar tone, you can cover just about any song in existence and immediately tell that it's Dragonforce that's doing the cover. That's just how potent that those guitar licks and that noise that you find from these axes is really recognizable to those who are within the heavy metal universe. I think that this was a fine cover. I would still prefer the original, obviously, but I don't think that Dragonforce bastardized this song. I think that they gave it a new take, a new philosophy, and I think that it was done fairly well. That's all I really have to say about it. I think that they did fairly well with this. It feels and sounds a little weird, but that's okay. Like, that's kind of what I like about it, is that I'm sort of magnetized to it because it's something that feels a little different. Overall, this album does not have a lot of weakness to it. Really, the weakness comes in some of the predictability that Dragonforce has sort of established over the years, but the growth still continues, which almost offsets that in some ways. I feel that some songs could have had a little bit more strength behind telling a story as opposed to it just being about dancing along a guitar fretboard. This isn't an Yngwie Malmsteen album. It is an important facet, but it's also something that can take away some of the focus from the storytelling being done by the vocals or the lyricism. It almost makes it like you could say or write anything on a Dragonforce song and it wouldn't matter, because immediately all of that attention would be shifted the minute that the guitar work comes into play. And that's still going to be something that has to be played around with a little bit. It may always be a weakness of the band, and it may not be something that they can even necessarily control, which is a real shame, because balance sometimes is so critical whenever it comes to really pinpointing an amazing album. This is a 21 out of 30. I would recommend this album to a lot of people. It was a great listen. I really liked it. I want to know what you guys think, though. What you think about Reaching Into Infinity by Dragonforce. Let me know in the comments below. My name is CoverKillerNation, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Have a good one.